Most guys think that when a woman pulls away or moves on, she barely notices their absence. But here's the truth. Women feel your loss way more than they let on, often far more than you ever imagined. The reality is, when you truly understand how a woman's mind works, you'll realize that she needs you way more than you need her. In this video, we're diving into the hidden psychology behind why your absence impacts her so deeply, sometimes even driving her to obsession. Stick around because what you're about to learn will completely change the way you see relationships. When a woman distances herself or even ends things, most guys assume she's completely fine, that she barely thinks about them afterward. But the truth is, women are often hit way harder by your absence than they let on. In fact, when you stop reaching out or responding, it triggers a series of psychological responses that can catch even her by surprise. At first, she might seem indifferent, posting on social media, hanging out with friends, or even dating someone new. But beneath that facade, her mind is working overtime. See, women are wired to seek emotional security and connection. When that's suddenly taken away, it creates a void that her mind can't help but focus on. Here's what most men miss. The impact of your absence doesn't hit her right away. In the beginning, she might feel a sense of freedom or relief, thinking she's better off. But as days turn into weeks, the reality of that empty space starts to sink in. That's when the doubts creep in. Questions like, did I make a mistake? Or, is he really moving on without me? This is the phase where your absence transforms from just a physical one to a psychological presence she can't escape. It's no longer about what you did or didn't do. It's about the silence, the unanswered texts, and the realization that you're no longer a guaranteed part of her life. The irony is, the more you pull back, the more she feels the need to fill that void. This reaction is tied to something called psychological reactance, which is just a fancy way of saying that people want what they can't have. When you're constantly available, there's no urgency to think about you because she knows you'll always be there. But once you remove yourself, her mind shifts into overdrive, replaying memories, analyzing past conversations, and trying to figure out why you're not chasing her like she expected. That's when the emotional impact really kicks in. A lot of guys break no contact too early, thinking that a quick text or call will fix things. But what they don't understand is that every time you reach out, you reset the clock on her emotional response. The longer you maintain that silence, the more her mind has to wrestle with the idea of losing you for good. It's almost like a psychological detox, painful at first, but increasingly powerful as time goes on. That's why it's crucial to resist the urge to check in or respond to her breadcrumbs. Those small, vague messages she sends aren't signs of genuine interest. They're just ways for her to see if you're still emotionally hooked. And here's the kicker. Women often feel the loss more deeply because they're naturally more reflective when it comes to relationships. While most guys try to distract themselves, women tend to process emotions head-on, replaying everything that went wrong and questioning their decisions. That's why, even if she's acting carefree on the outside, her mind is likely stuck on you, on what you're doing, who you're with, and if you've already moved on. The silence doesn't just leave her guessing, it leaves her obsessing, which is why it's so effective. So, if you ever start to doubt the power of your absence, remember this. The less you do, the more she feels. It's not about playing games or trying to manipulate her, it's about understanding how emotional investment works. By giving her the space to feel your loss, you're actually making her realize just how much you meant to her in the first place. And that realization, it's way more powerful than any text, call, or grand gesture you could make. One of the biggest misconceptions guys have is that women always go for the guy who gives them the most attention, the one who's always there, always texting, always making plans, but in reality, it's the opposite. Women are far more intrigued by the man who seems just out of reach, the one who isn't constantly available. This isn't just a theory, it's rooted in basic human psychology. When something feels too easy to get, we start to question its value. The same applies to relationships. If you're always there, always responding within seconds, she starts to take that attention for granted. But when you pull back, when you stop being so predictable, that's when she starts to notice, starts to wonder if she's losing you for good. There's a reason why women tend to chase men who seem less interested. It's not because they enjoy the drama or the uncertainty, but because it triggers a need for validation. When you're distant or less responsive, it leaves her questioning where she stands, and that uncertainty makes her crave your attention even more. It's almost like a psychological itch she can't help but scratch. This is known as the scarcity principle, the idea that people value things more when they're less available. When you're always around, your attention feels abundant, almost disposable. But when you pull back, suddenly your attention becomes rare and therefore a lot more valuable. Another layer to this is something called intermittent reinforcement, a term from behavioral psychology. It's the same technique used in casinos to keep people glued to slot machines. When rewards, like your attention, come unpredictably, it becomes almost addictive. If you text her back every time, she stops thinking about it. But if you only reply sometimes, she's left guessing, constantly checking her phone and replaying your last conversation. That unpredictability keeps her emotionally hooked because she never knows when the next bit of attention is coming. And the more she has to work for it, the more invested she becomes. The mistake most guys make is thinking that showing interest means bombarding her with attention. But real attraction isn't about giving more, it's about making her earn it. When she feels like she has to work to get your time and attention, it shifts the dynamic completely. Suddenly, she's the one initiating texts, finding excuses to see you, and putting in the effort to keep you interested. This is why pulling back isn't about being rude or playing mind games. It's about showing that you have standards, that your time is valuable, and that you won't just hand over your attention to anyone who asks. And let's not forget the role of ego in all of this. When a woman thinks she's losing you, it's not just about missing you as a person, it's also about what it says about her. If a guy who once seemed interested suddenly stops reaching out, it challenges her self-perception. Women, just like men, have egos that don't take well to rejection or indifference. When you're no longer chasing her, it makes her wonder, was I not good enough? Or is he seeing someone else? That little hit to her ego makes her want to prove that she's worth your attention. It's not manipulation, it's just understanding human nature. The truth is, people always want what they can't have, and women are no exception. That's why being slightly out of reach makes you more attractive, not less. It creates a sense of urgency, making her feel like she has to act quickly before she loses you for good. And the more she chases, the more invested she becomes, which is exactly why maintaining that slight distance is so powerful. The goal isn't to ignore her completely or act like you don't care at all. That would just push her away. The goal is to balance interest with independence, to show her that while you might be interested, you're not desperate. And once you master that balance, she'll find herself thinking about you way more than you might realize. Silence is one of the most underrated tactics when it comes to relationships. Most guys think that to keep a woman's interest, they need to fill every silence with a text, a call, or some kind of gesture. But in reality, silence can be a lot more powerful than words. When you go silent, it leaves room for her thoughts to spiral, and that's exactly what makes it effective. Women are naturally more reflective than men, often replaying past interactions in their minds, analyzing what was said, what wasn't, and what it all means. When you go silent, it triggers that reflective side of her brain, making her replay every detail of your last conversation, wondering if she said something wrong or if you've lost interest. It's also a way of disrupting the pattern she's used to. If you've been the guy who always responds immediately or initiates conversations, pulling back with silence creates a stark contrast. Suddenly, she's left wondering what changed. That disruption makes her curious, and curiosity is a powerful driver of attraction. People hate unanswered questions, especially when it involves someone they're interested in. When you don't reach out, she's forced to fill in the blanks herself, and more often than not, she'll start to miss the attention you used to give. That's when she begins to text first, to find excuses to bump into you, to see if she's still on your mind. Silence also gives you the upper hand when it comes to emotional control. The person who speaks first is usually the one who breaks, who reveals their cards. When you stay silent, it suggests confidence and self-control. It shows that you're not desperate for her attention, that you're not sitting around waiting for her to respond. This kind of emotional restraint is rare and attractive, because it signals that you're not like most guys who chase at the first sign of interest. Women are instinctively drawn to men who seem like they could walk away at any moment because it suggests you have options, that you're not relying on her for validation. But here's where a lot of guys mess up. They think silence means ignoring her indefinitely. That's not the case. Silence only works when it's temporary, when it's long enough to make her miss you, but not so long that she moves on. The sweet spot is to go silent for a few days, or even a week, depending on how frequently you used to communicate. During that time, focus on yourself, hit the gym, work on your projects, hang out with friends. When she sees that your world doesn't revolve around her, it makes her wonder if she's losing you for good, which only makes her want you more. Another reason silence is so powerful is that it triggers a psychological effect known as the Zeigarnik effect. This is the tendency for people to remember unfinished tasks better than completed ones. When a conversation ends abruptly or you suddenly stop reaching out, it creates an unfinished business kind of feeling in her mind. She starts to wonder why you stopped texting, if she did something wrong, if you're seeing someone else. This need for closure makes her think about you constantly, replaying scenarios in her head, and the more she thinks about you, the more emotionally attached she becomes. Also, silence shifts the focus from you to her. Instead of you being the one chasing, suddenly she's the one trying to figure out where things stand. That role reversal can be a game changer. Most women are used to being pursued, so when you flip the script, it catches them off guard. It creates a challenge, and everyone loves a challenge, especially when it comes to attraction. By making her come to you, you're setting the stage for a dynamic where she's trying to earn your attention, not the other way around. The key to making silence work is to not flinch. The moment you give in and break that silence with a text or a call, you lose all the ground you gained. It shows that you were just playing a game all along and that you couldn't handle the silence yourself. That's why emotional control is so important. Being able to resist the urge to reach out shows that you're serious, that you actually have the self-discipline to walk away if you need to. And that's something women find incredibly attractive because it shows that you're not afraid to lose her. And when she realizes that you're willing to walk away, that's when she starts to panic about losing you instead. Regret is a powerful emotion, especially in relationships. When a woman starts to feel your absence, it triggers a mental replay of everything that happened between you two. She starts questioning her choices, wondering if pushing you away was a mistake. This is because of something called loss aversion, a psychological principle that explains how people are more affected by losing something they already have than by gaining something new. When you pull back, she feels that loss, even if she was the one who ended things or created distance first. The absence makes her realize the value you brought into her life, and that realization hits harder than you might think. Women, by nature, tend to reflect more on their past decisions, analyzing what went wrong and what could have been different. When you're no longer around, she has the mental space to think about you more often, replaying your conversations, your actions, and even the small things she might have overlooked before. The more she reflects, the more she starts to second-guess her choices. Even if she was confident about pulling away at first, that confidence starts to crack when the reality of your absence sets in. Regret creeps in slowly, often disguised as curiosity or a sudden urge to check your social media, to see if you've moved on or if you seem happier without her. This feeling is amplified if she notices that you're doing just fine or even better without her. When she sees you leveling up, hanging out with friends, or just living your life unapologetically, it makes her question if she was the one holding you back. Nothing triggers regret faster than realizing that someone you let go is thriving without you. It's a harsh wake-up call that maybe, just maybe, she miscalculated. In a way, your silence becomes a mirror, forcing her to confront her own insecurities and the fear that she made a mistake. Another psychological factor at play is the contrast principle. When you were giving her attention, compliments, and affection, she got used to that kind of treatment. But when all of that suddenly stops, it creates a contrast that's impossible to ignore. This abrupt change makes her yearn for what she took for granted. It's like a cold shower, shocking and impossible to brush off. The silence isn't just about what's missing, it's about making her realize what she had. This is why staying silent is more effective than any argument or explanation. Words can be debated, but absence is undeniable. What's even more interesting is that regret often leads to a selective memory. She's more likely to remember the good times, the moments when you made her laugh, or the times when you showed you genuinely cared. The arguments, the disagreements, and the reasons things ended in the first place tend to fade into the background. It's a kind of mental editing that makes her see you in a better light than before. This is why exes often seem more appealing after some time apart. It's not that you've changed, but that the mind has a way of romanticizing the past, focusing on the highlights while downplaying the flaws. This effect is amplified if she doesn't have someone else in the picture. When she's alone, the silence becomes even louder. Without distractions, her mind naturally drifts back to you, especially at night when she's left with her thoughts. That's when the regret hits the hardest. When she's scrolling through old photos, reading through past messages, or just lying awake wondering if you've already moved on to someone better. The fear of being replaced is a powerful trigger for regret because it's not just about losing you, but about someone else experiencing what she used to have. But here's where most guys mess up. When she starts reaching out again, they jump at the first text, eager to fix things immediately. This only confirms her belief that you were waiting around, which kills the attraction instantly. The better move is to stay composed, to let her feel that regret a little longer. When she realizes that getting you back isn't as simple as sending a "Hey, I miss you" text, that's when her regret turns into genuine effort. That's when she starts to put in the work to get your attention again, because now the fear of losing you for good has become real. So the goal isn't to make her feel bad or to play mind games, but to give her the space to realize what she lost. Regret isn't about making her suffer. It's about giving her the clarity to see things differently. It's about letting her come to her own conclusions without you having to spell them out. And when she finally reaches out, it's not out of guilt or loneliness, but out of a genuine desire to fix things. That's when you know the regret is real, and that's when you have the upper hand. When a woman starts to regret losing you, the power dynamic in the relationship shifts significantly. This is the moment when you need to act strategically rather than impulsively. Most guys make the mistake of rushing back as soon as they see any sign of interest. They reply instantly to her texts, agree to meet up without hesitation, or start confessing their feelings in the hope of fixing things quickly. But this approach only confirms to her that she never truly lost you, which kills the regret and puts her back in control. The real power move is to stay composed and make her prove that she genuinely wants you back, not just as a way to soothe her own guilt or loneliness. Your first move should be to keep the mystery alive. If she reaches out, don't be overly available. Take your time to reply, and when you do, keep your responses short but confident. Avoid revealing too much about what you've been up to or how you feel about her. The less she knows, the more curious she becomes. This uncertainty makes her invest more mentally and emotionally, trying to figure out if she still has a chance with you. It's a classic psychological principle. People value what they have to work for. If she feels like she has to earn your attention again, her interest will spike naturally. Another powerful tactic is to subtly showcase your growth. Women are naturally drawn to men who are progressing in life, who have ambitions, and who aren't stuck in the same place they were when the relationship ended. This doesn't mean flexing on social media or pretending to be something you're not. It's about genuinely leveling up, hitting the gym, pursuing your goals, expanding your social circle, and making sure that if she checks in on you, she sees a version of you that's more confident, more focused, and undeniably better off. This sends a clear message. You're not waiting around, you're moving forward. And that's a huge trigger for regret because it forces her to confront the possibility that she might have been the one holding you back. However, it's not just about making her regret. It's about setting a new standard if she tries to come back. If she reaches out wanting to meet up, don't immediately jump to the idea of getting back together. Suggest something low-key and casual instead. This tells her that you're open to talking but not desperate to rekindle things. It forces her to put in more effort, to prove that she's serious about wanting you back and not just seeking temporary comfort. When she sees that she can't just walk back into your life without making any changes, it makes her value you even more. One of the most powerful psychological triggers is the fear of missing out. When she realizes that you're doing better, that you're not bitter, and that you might actually be happier without her, it creates a sense of urgency. She starts to imagine someone else enjoying what she used to have, your attention, your time, your energy. And that thought alone is enough to make her reconsider everything. This is why staying silent and focusing on your own growth is so effective. It lets her mind fill in the blanks with worst-case scenarios, which is far more impactful than anything you could say directly. But here's the thing. Even if she tries to come back, it's crucial not to make things too easy. If you immediately say yes to every text, every call, or every suggestion to meet up, you're telling her that she still has you wrapped around her finger. Instead, keep things balanced. Be polite, but slightly detached. Interested, but not eager. Let her wonder a little. Let her question if she's done enough to win you back. This doesn't just keep her intrigued, it also sets a new precedent for how things will be if you do get back together, on your terms, not hers. The end goal isn't to punish her or to play mind games indefinitely. It's to reestablish the balance of power in a way that makes the relationship healthier if you do decide to give it another shot. By making her work to earn your trust and attention again, you're ensuring that she won't take you for granted a second time. You're also proving to yourself that you don't need her validation to be happy, that you're perfectly capable of thriving on your own, and that confidence, that sense of independence, is what truly makes you irresistible. When she finally realizes that getting you back isn't as easy as she thought, that's when she starts putting in real effort. That's when the texts become more frequent, when she starts initiating conversations, suggesting meetups, or even outright confessing that she misses you. This shift in dynamic is proof that your silence worked, that by pulling back and focusing on yourself, you didn't just make her regret losing you, you made her see you in a completely new light. At this point, the decision is yours. You can choose to see where things go, or you can walk away with your head held high, knowing that you didn't beg, chase, or compromise your self-respect. Either way, you've already won, because the power is back in your hands, and that's the true leverage, knowing that you don't need her, but she might just need you way more than she ever realized. By now, it should be clear that the real strength lies in embracing your own worth and understanding the psychological impact of your absence. When a woman realizes that she can't easily have you back, it forces her to confront her own feelings, her mistakes, and the reality of losing something valuable. This isn't about playing mind games or seeking revenge. It's about maintaining your dignity, recognizing your own value, and letting her come to terms with what she lost on her own. Your silence, your absence, and your growth aren't just tactics to get a reaction. They're reflections of a mindset that prioritizes self-respect over temporary validation. By now, it should be clear that the real strength lies in embracing your own worth and understanding the psychological impact of your absence. When a woman realizes that she can't easily have you back, it forces her to confront her own feelings, her mistakes, and the reality of losing something valuable. This isn't about playing mind games or seeking revenge. It's about maintaining your dignity, recognizing your own value, and letting her come to terms with what she lost on her own. Your silence, your absence, and your growth aren't just tactics to get a reaction. They're reflections of a mindset that prioritizes self-respect over temporary validation. The irony is that the more you need someone, the less they value you. Desperation and neediness are repellent because they signal that you lack options, that your world revolves around their approval. But when you detach, when you focus on becoming a better version of yourself, regardless of her response, you trigger a deep psychological conflict within her. She starts to question if she misjudged you, if maybe she was too quick to walk away, if someone else might recognize your value before she gets another chance. This inner turmoil is what makes her reach out, what makes her try to reconnect, because the thought of losing you for good becomes unbearable. But here's the real secret. Even if she does come back, the goal isn't to just pick things up where they left off. The old dynamic can't continue if you want something better, something healthier. The break was a wake-up call for both of you. For her, it's a realization that she might have taken you for granted. For you, it's proof that you don't need her to feel complete. So if you do decide to let her back in, it has to be on a new foundation, one built on mutual respect, clear boundaries, and an understanding that you're not afraid to walk away again if things start to slip back into old patterns. Moving forward, the focus should always be on growth. It's easy to get stuck in the cycle of trying to prove a point or get revenge, but that only keeps you tied to the past. The real power move is to keep improving, physically, mentally, emotionally, so that whether she comes back or not, you're in a better place. This not only makes you more attractive to her, but also opens you up to better opportunities with women who will see your value without needing to lose you first. Women are drawn to men who have a sense of direction, who are constantly leveling up, who don't make their happiness dependent on one person. This kind of independence isn't just attractive, it's magnetic. At the end of the day, the strongest position to be in is one where you have options, where you're not afraid of being alone, and where you're focused on your own path. If she recognizes your value and wants to be part of your life, great. If not, you've already won by refusing to settle for anything less than what you deserve. This mindset shift transforms how you interact with all women, not just the one who might be regretting losing you. It changes how you communicate, how you set boundaries, and how you respond to games or mixed signals. When you operate from a place of abundance rather than scarcity, you stop chasing and start attracting. And that's the ultimate goal, to live in such a way that you're the one choosing, not waiting to be chosen. To build a life that's so full, so compelling, that any woman would have to think twice about walking away. Because when you truly understand your value and refuse to settle, it's not just about making her regret losing you. It's about making sure you never settle for someone who doesn't see your worth in the first place. So, if you're dealing with the silence, the uncertainty, the mind games, remember that the real battle isn't about getting her back. It's about getting yourself back, stronger and wiser than before. Keep building, keep growing, and let her watch what she gave up. Because the moment you stop needing her is the moment you become someone she can't afford to lose.